Let's get this start demo first. This is same series of generic repository with unit of work and web API with .NET 8, and here I have just created in with this API we have a multiple DB with unit of work, and that I just created in a few endpoint, like it is a get endpoint which is returning only that product details with the product DB. So let me try to get it's debugging there. Let me remove the debugging point. Now I have written the result. I have got the result only for product DB. Now moving to next to order DB. So this endpoint actually connect with the order DB, and it will return the data from that order table. Now see all the order details getting populated with the order DB. Now what I have done, another endpoint, this is endpoint which is getting the product table, product DB data and order table data, and we have merged and get the data together. So try to execute. Now see it is just product table along with their order. So what I did over here, just getting the data from product DB and then getting the data from order DB, then we have to merge. That also will implement in this session. And then finally what we have done, we have just create a post endpoint where I just create any insert a data or any add the data of that product or orders. So those will be inserted or those will be stored in our product DB as well as their order DB separately. And also if I have any issues, so that also will roll back. So that also we have prepared the mechanism. So just we execute. Now we have the execute successfully. We have 201. Now we can see this data here with together. Execute. That should be the last one. Yes, this is the last one. Okay, so let's get a start for implementation. So before implementation, I especially recommend to you, please go to my channel, visit my channel, and check out this series of generic repository with unit of work, generic repository, and also automapper and generic pagination. So these are series actually covering in this session. If you want to that repository, so you can go to my GitHub link and you can take it from here. So moving start for implementation, open my same series, same repository over here what we have done before. So we have just created a web API with unit of work, and we have entity and DB context everything. So now what I need to do over here, I have already a block table. So what I will do, I just create another table for this post, so that we can create another DB. For example, I will just create a 1 DB for block table, and I just create another entity for post, another DB for that post table. Okay, so let me create another table or another entity for post, and let me create some property for post ID, then title, then description, then author, and finally we have to create that relationship, right? So relationship we can maintain from this blog, have a blog ID, so that post actually one blog has can have multiple posts, right? So that's that relationship we have to maintain, like this is a primary key, but this should be a foreign key. But if we have a two DB, so definitely we can't set that foreign key and primary key, only just we can set a primary key. So what I can do, I can just store whatever block ID I can just store over here, so that whatever inserting data over here blog ID, so whatever blog I will insert it, so those reference ID also I will store in our post. So done for this entity. So we have that post and blog, and what I will do, I'll just create uh, DB context for both post and blog. So I will show you the from the scratch, so that you don't need to confuse anywhere, like okay, how we can doing these things. So let me create a new new db context for this block context, block db context. Okay, inside this block db context, what I need to do, I just inherit that db context, and then what I need to do, I just create a constructor, and inside the constructor I have to pass the db context options, the db context option, and pass it to that whatever db context we have just preparing. So we have to pass and just create options and call it to your base, and just pass it to your whatever db context we have, so that we can whatever configuration we can pass it to our db context. That is done for this db context block db context. And one more things we have to specify here, db set. So let me create a db set for this db context, for example db set, and then what is my db set name is, it is for block we just created, right? So that is done. And then also just create a proper names for that blocks. So this is done. So this is first db context is created. Now just create another db context for same for that post. So let me create class for post db context, post db context. Similar way we have to done over here as well. Let me first like db context, and then also just create specify the constructor and call it to here our db context option, db context, db context options, and pass it to your db context name, and then store as a variable. And similar way we have to just create a base constructor, and also similar we have to just create a db set. So db set, change it to your blog post entity, and then finally change it to your name like it is a post. Okay, so that is done for db context. So first you have to just create your db context, whatever you have db context. So I just create two db context for blog and post. Now what I need to do, I have to go in, I have to actually create this tables and db in our sql db, because I want to use a sql server. So whatever db you want to use, or whatever service provider you want to use, you can choose up to your perspective. So what I need to do, just go to the console, and okay, so before that I specify the connection string, so that where I want to create and which db has to be created. Okay, so what I need to do, I have to go to app settings, and similar whatever we have done right in previously for this product db context. So I need to just create another two db context connection string. So let me copy this, and let me copy again one more. And now what I need to do, I need to change for, this is for blog db context, and this is for post db context. Also we'll change to here like web api blog db, and similar for post db. So this is done. What else we have to change? Okay, so nothing we have to change. I think this is fine for this over here. Okay, so once it's done, go to your program.cs file, and here you just actually create your service provider, specify service provider which db you have to just refer, right? So same code you can just use over here. I already explained everything, but yeah, I'll not going to again. So change it to whatever your new db context. So my db context is, for example, block post db context, and db context name also should be, connection string should be changed over here. This is done for that block. Similar way we have to done for post as well, so change it to that post connection string as well as change for post db context. So this is done. This is done. So what would be the next step? So your connection string also ready, everything is ready. Now we have to create, actually we have to create the db. So before creating a db, I just open my sql server, sql server management studio, so that we can make sure that is properly created or not. So let me open and I'll show you. So this is my SQL local SQL Server Management Studio. Now we don't have that, those DB, which is we just preparing, right? So we'll just create it. Let me create a command for just create our DB. So there is a two way you can just create. You can just directly go to here for this manage package manage console, or either you can go to your tools and NuGet package and package console. So what I will do, first I will just create our block db context db. So this is a very simple command, add migration, and then whatever your db initial db name, you can just specify just a variable. Okay, so what is my variable? It is a block data initialize, or just specify like that, initialize. Okay, and then you have to, because see it, if multiple db you have in your project, so then you have to specify actually which one you have to just uh, you have to just migrate and update. So for this way you have to just add one more command here, just context, specify the context and then the context name. So what is my context name over here? I just want to this one, so just pass it to here, just at enter. Once you hit enter, it will start and succeed also. Now see, it is just created, right? And also you are able to see those db context migration as prepare, like this is up, and also this is block table is created. And if you want to see in your project as well, so you can go to migration. In this migration, see this name I just created, and here just created dot snapshot and everything. So once it migration done, what you need to do next, you have to just update that migration. So similar way again you have to do update update database, and same things you have to just specify context and which context you want to update. So let me hit enter. Once it's done, see everything is created and it should be show in our SQL server. So let me refresh. Once you refresh, go to db set. Yes, this one. So let me zoom in for you. So this is the db, so which just we have created. And also if you expand, you are able to see only one table. Yes, this is block tables. And if you go to see here, primary key is generated, and this along with two columns. So similar way what we have to done, what to we have to do further for this post db context, same things we have to done over here. So let me again add migration. So this time I will just change it to block to post data initialize and then context, and let me change to post and hit enter. Again it will generate it for post data, post table along with this data. There's a nothing, just foreign key. And once it's done, again just update migration Similar for this. Now it's also just preparing, and if you move it to back and refresh, once you refresh your DB, you should able to see that post one also. So this is post one also. So both DB has been created. Let me open this blog post, and if you go to here, there's nothing. Simply is a, as a integer ID, but will store that blog ID, whatever blog I will create another DB, so I will store in this post DB. So that is done for migration perspective, and we have just prepared our DB. Both DB we have just prepared. Now I have to do something in our unit of work. So what I need to do for my unit of work, I just have to mention, let me close everything first. Where is my generic method for, okay, so this one basically what I'm trying to do over here, I just whatever our external repository, I just pass it to our external repository from this API controller, and thus actually we have to prepare our repository, and then finally we have to set our DB, right? So this is a specific DB, whatever we have just prepared over here first DB, but we have to use this generic method, that external generate method for all the uh, entity, right? Based on this their entity, like suppose I am using blog product as a blog repository, so I have to use that blog db context. If I use that post repository, so that I have to use the post db context, so that I need to just modify a little bit over here. But yeah, that also will do some generic way, so that you can just use in your project, and everywhere you can just use it. So what I can do, just whatever I have here, so I need, what I need to do, I need to just create one more method over here, and yeah, so I just need to create a overload method, so that I don't disturb this method. I just can pass one more parameter, and based on the parameter I can decide, okay, which db context I have to use as of now. So let me open that. I need unit of work, and here that db, that method, right? So what I will do, I just create another method, and here I need to just specify just overload method. Actually I'm just creating the overload method, for example string db type. So what I will do, I just pass a db type, and go back to your here, just copy this. For demonstration perspective I'm just using this overload method, but yeah, you can just use in your own way, or whatever your flexibility. So what you can do over here, I just pass it to as a null property, so that if somebody using this method, or if pass any value, so that they can use this method. Okay, so that is done. Okay, I just paste it to wrong way, so let me remove from here, pass it to your method parameter, and I just pass it over here. And what I can do over here, I just use a simple switch statement over here, but yeah, later on we'll do a generic way to do the things, so that I don't need to specify again and again. Okay, so this is product, then I have to pass the product things. But yeah, for the first actually in this first session I just show you like, okay, how the easy we can handle that multiple db. So once it's completed, then upcoming session will handle that generic bay as well. So only just pass that your repository name. So based on the your repository, it will get whatever your db context actually refer that repository. So what I will do over here, just prepare. Okay, just what more, what another things I have to do over here, similar way. For example, I have just prepared and previously I just inject this db context, right? So what I can do, just my blog db context. So this is my blog db context, as well as I just injecting this one to our here. So in this constructor for the dependency injection, and as well as I will do for post db context and store the same things we have done over here and put the comma. Okay, now we have two db contexts. We have injecting properly in our unit of work, and those things we can use it over here. So for product, not product actually, this is should be a blog, and this should be a post. So for the blog, what in db context I have to use refer over here, I will use for that blog db context, as well as if it is a post, so what I will do over here, I'll just refer the post db context. So that is done, but yeah, it is complaining something, cannot convert it to over here. Okay, yeah, so one more things we have to do over here. If you go to this method actually inside our generic repository, so go to implementation, and it is our repository, generic repository, right? So we have previously specified only for that db context, because we have initially start for one db context, so that's why we have specified over here. So what I can do, I just change for here. I have not specified any in our generic repository in any specific db context. Whatever db context we have to pass in our unit of work, that will handle automatically. So what I will do, just remove that whatever my db context, just remove the existing db context. Means this is our db context which is provide the entity framework, right? So this is db context. I have to pass it and change it to name as well, so that we can change it too easily. There is no confusion, and same things also need to change over here. Instead of my db context, and same things for here, my db context, same things for here as well, same things for here as well, same things for here, and this is also done. So yeah, yeah, one more things I have to do over here for this one. So this is done. So this is done. So this changes you have to done, like whatever in previously we have done in our repository. So we have not specified any our own db context. This should be a default db context, and it's also complaining because we have to change our method parameter. So I have to change the signature as well. So go to that I repository here, and here also you have to just change to my db to db context. Let me db context, bring the namespace. That will resolve your problem. Okay, so once it's done, your compilation error has been gone. Now move it to your unit of work again. Now this compilation error should be gone over here. So this is done. Now what I need to do, I need to just create two repository, similar way I product repository and order repository, right? So because I just create newly for this db context and this entity, so that's why we have to just create another repository as well, so that we can use in our controller. And so let me create a interface for that first. So let me create over here. This is for I blog repository, and here what I need to do, I just inject our generic repository here, I repository, and pass it to whatever our entity. So what is our entity over here? We'll use that blog, and this is done for here, and also it is public, that is done. And similar way I'll just use for this, I'll just create another repository for that blog post. So I post repository, and same way we have to specify our generic repository, and this time our entity would be a post. And this is done. Now we have to implement that block repository and post repository. So let me create an implementation class as well for that blog and post repository. So it is a blog repository, and here what I need to do, I just specify our uh, implementation class of our generic repository. So what is that? It is a repository, and then I have to specify here that our entity. So what is my entity? My entity is a blog, and bring the namespace, as well as what I need to do, I just specify uh, our interface of that blog repository, right? So once it's done, it's complaining something, right? So I need to specify, because I use this repository, so I just create a constructor and specify, call the base method and pass it to our context. So let me generate automatically, and it is just created, see, just dbcontext, and pass it to your dbcontext. So here you can just specify whatever dbcontext you want to use. So I want to use from here for blog dbcontext, and let me bring the namespace. Let me call it to blog dbcontext for this repository. So I may specify this blog repository will consider that blog dbcontext. So similar way I need to just implement our post repository. So let me create implement for that post repository, post repository, and similar way I have to just use repository and pass it to your entity. So this time would be post, and similar way I just use that I post repository, inherit over here, and create the constructor and pass it to your on repository on db context. So what is our on db context for this post repository? It is refer post db context. So that is done. That is done for now creating that external repository which we have done. And this external repository we can use all that, whatever we have generic method, right? Insert, update, delete, everything. So if you want any additional method, so you can just use your implementation over here. So that is done. Now I have to use that unit of work using that external repository in our controller. So what you can do, either way you can just use create a in between of service, and that service can interact with our API or this controller. But yeah, for the demonstration perspective, I'm just using directly using in our controller. So what I will do, I just create a new controller for web API, empty controller, and here just change it to for uh, this is a multiple db context. So I'll just prepare it as a multi multiple uh, db context controller, and then just add. So it is just created. Now what I need to do over here, I just create one by one, I just create a constructor and so that I can inject our unit of work over here. And let me inject first unit of work, I unit of work, and specify over here and also inject to our constructor. So that is done, right? So now we have ready to use our unit of work and call it to our unit of work and get it that that endpoints. So first what I will do, I'll just create a get endpoint for a blog. So let me add http verb, get endpoint, and then I just need to create a method for get endpoint, right? So public async and then just get blogs and then pass it to parameter. It is a parameter less parameter, and then how I need to call that our repository via unit of work. So I already explained, but yeah, here I'll again where that blog repository, and what I need to do underscore unit of work, then get repository, that generic method I need to call over here and pass it to your repository name. So I'll just call it to my blog repository, and here I also specify that entity, which entity I need to using in this repository. So I'll just using this for blog. So that is done, and then now this is a two overload method, right? One is normal, and then another one is passing the db name, db type. So what I will do, I just pass it over here is a block because I will just use that block, but later on don't worry about that. We'll fix this one in upcoming session. We'll work on it and we'll change it to in a generic way, so that whatever, you know, whatever entity you will pass or whatever repository you will pass, he will get that whatever db context actually refer for this repository. So that will do that, not issue. So that is done. Then finally what I can do, I can call the get method for here dot get all asyncs, and then this, and then finally it is a async await. Actually it is a synchronized method, so you have to just specify async await, and finally store as a result, and then return back to response. So return okay, and then finally this. So let me save it and let me build, so that whatever we have done so far, make sure everything is proper working or not. Okay, so this is succeed. Let me run as well and put the debugger point so that we can see that flow, like how is we are getting the data. And if you, so yeah, that is we have just created this new dbcontext controller, and inside this we have created this get endpoint. And once I click here, try to get execute, it should be go here and go to that implementation as well, so that we can check proper it is going to proper way or not. Okay, so F10, go to here. Now I am getting this generic repository method. Here I just create a repository. Now it is not, see, this is one issue, right? So it is trying to get that repository whatever we have passed external repository, it is saying it is not, it is null, right? Just because we have missed something. So that's I want to show you, that's why I trying to do debug and these things. Okay, so what I will do, just stop this application or just continue this application. Once you continue, you will see that you will getting that error. What is actually saying, it is saying fail to get repository because I have not specified or I have not actually resolved about dependency, right? Because see, this is a dependency. in this unit of work. Unit of work, we have dependency on that uh, whatever we have just create external repository, right? So what is the solution over here? You just go to program.cs file, and already we have done many things for that other for example, see, I have done for that product repository. So similar way you have to registered here for that all the repository. So add transient, and then you have to just pass it to whatever your external repository. So my external repository is iBlogger, as well as that blogger blog repository, and I have to change to this bracket, and then specifies this. And similar we have to done for this uh, post as well, right? So let me change it to I post repository and change it to for post repository. So this is that final step we have to done to register our blog, whatever we have creating repository. So once it's done, let me stop so that it should be run properly. So again, just run and see in action what it's trying to do over here. Trying execute, it is debugging point hitting. So let me go. Now it is here. Now this time, see, I'm getting that repository, whatever repository I'm trying to get. So now it should be here. Then it will just check as well, like whatever we have passed the type, right? So we have passed the type of the block, so it should be here. It should be generated and return back to our repository, and then call it to that method. Once you get the method, now this time I don't have any blocks, that's why it is 0. So don't worry about that, we'll just port some data and we'll get it. But yeah, there's a no exception. I'm returning back to data as well. So that is done. As of now we don't have any data, so that is done. So similar way, I'll just create for that that endpoint as well, that another endpoint which is calling for that post repository, right? It's another db. So what I will do, let me stop again and copy, not copy, I think, yeah, copy this get, and here I'll just specify, or I think we can specify here as well for this. This is for blog, and this is for post, and we can just create a method for this post, and change it to your implementation. So now this time our implementation would be, it's pretty much similar, but I only need to change your repository name, right? So previously I used that blog repository, I will use here that post repository. And similar, I need to change entity, whatever entity we have refer over here, and I have to pass over here this time is a post, and finally terminate over here and store as a post repository. And then similar, I have to call our get all method same way whatever we have done. So get all async and store as a variable, and just return back to data. So return back to our result. That is done for post. Okay, similar we have to check run. Now we have created over here as well, execute. Now it is reaching over here, execute. Now again it is come here. Now it should be go this time in here. Now see, now it's time this will create it for that post context. Continue. Now returning zero data because we don't have a data. Okay, so that is done. Now what I will do, create next. So now I will create a post endpoint which is will post in this db context, okay, block db context as well as post db context. So I have to just create a post endpoint. So it is very simple again. So create a http post, and here what I will do, similar, I can just create a method for this post, and I have to pass some data. For example, I need to pass post along with this blog along with the post, right? So I have to either way I can just create a new model. Let me create a new model for that so that I can show you the proper way. So where is that model? It is a in data entity. It should be one view model. Okay, so this is a view model. Let me create a new class for that view model. It is just a blog post request, blog post request. And here what I will do, I just create whatever I want to pass to create our db, our blog and post data. So if you go to your entity, so this is blog. So what I need to do, I don't require this id. Yes, I don't require id, so I need to send this name and description, and as well as what I need to do, I need to pass that blog, I need to pass it to the post data as well, right? So what I can do, again I need to create another class for that, another model. For example, because this is a collection, right, which is should be a one to many relationship collection. So what I will do over here, I'll just create a post request, post request. So this is done, and then here what I will do, we have to just create um, this property over here inside this post request. So this is done. This is way like, okay, whatever post request we have to pass, I can pass to title, description and author, and as well as blog id, because this is a reference, this is a foreign key relationship between our post and blog and post, right? So that is done. Okay, let me stop the debugger. So once I stop the debugger, okay, so let me go back your controller. This is my controller. Now what I will do, I just pass it to blog post, blog post. It is not saved, I guess. So let me check our model name, blog post. Okay, one more things I have to do over here, and then pass it to blog post, as well as go to that blog post. I have to pass along with blog post collection as well, right? So what I can do, I can just create a property, a list of property, so that we can pass to multiple post along with this particular blog. So that should be a list, and post, yes, post request, and specify that post requests. That is done. Okay, so once it's done, what I will do, I will just start for our implementation. So implementation would be a straightforward, very simple again, but here this time I'll just use that, transaction like rollback transaction or begin transaction, those things. So that also I miss, that I have to do that thing. So what I can do, go to again, go back to again your unit of work, because that part I miss, that actually I do that. So here is my repository, and here you will go to that unit of work. In this unit of work, if you expand collapse every method, so here we have maintained our transaction, right? So for example, there's a rollback transaction, save changes transaction, as well as we have commit and begin transaction, right? So this is important. So that's why this session is created. Previously we have one data, so we can easily maintain transaction over here, right? So how we can do if we have multiple data? So as of now two, but yeah, later on we can have another three, four, five, whatever, as per the requirement of our API or things, right? So as of now, it's very straightforward. I will use that for the understanding perspective, but later on I will create those things as a generic way. So what I can do over here is just remove this transaction method because we don't require this one, and we can use that transaction but other way, but yeah, I will not use that way. Simply what I will do, whatever our context, right? So for example, this is my context, so simply just change it to here, and again you can just call it to another transaction, another db context here, and change it to there to post db context. That's it. This is actually simple way which I'll show you. We can handle this way, but yeah, later on, don't worry, we'll use as a generic way. So whatever db context we have in this here, we have to register and they will automatically get, and we don't need to again and again specify that particular db context. Okay, so let me move forward again for this commit transaction as well. So similar way, what you can do here, you just change it to the transaction for this commit transaction as well. uh, Similar way you can just use this, but we have to change that method name. That's it. Let me change it to here, and change the method name. So what is my method name? It is a commit transaction, right? So similar, I think Visual Studio have some problem once I mouse over here, so that is problem. Okay, so that is fine. So this is commit transaction, so I just need to specify the commit transaction two times, and then in it as dispose method, this is fine. We don't need to change anything over here because it is automatically disposed. And then go to here, the dispose method. Inside here I need to change that, like for example, it is a blog, so blog post that dispose, as well as that post dispose, and we have to just remove this one. This is done for dispose, and then finally we have rollback. So here uh, we have to change for rollback as well. So what I can do for rollback, it's very simple. Again, we have to can change it. We can just come into this section and just use await underscore that whatever our blog post context, and then database, and this we can just roll back and specify this. And similar way we can do over here that post database, and then it is a commit transaction, rollback transaction. So that is done. That is done for rollback, and finally it is only just remaining for save changes, for save changes part. So that also we can take care. But here this, see, this save changes we can send it to, we can just create it to as an integer, but that we can change it. We can change it for int, return type we can remove that. But yeah, for the here I will not change anything, but I'll just move, I will just just create a variable simply over here. Let me create a variable for here, integer, and just pass it to id as a default id, and later on we'll change it. And now we can change our db context So what is our db context? It is a block db context. Similar way I can just await post db context, and also we can store here as the id, and this is also we can use the id. It is just similar, just for this no, there's a many way actually we can handle this, but I just use this way for the demonstration perspective. But yeah, we'll change it as a generic things in a later on. So return this id, that's it. So save changes also done. So all the transaction method we have modified, but it is very simple way I just modify, but yeah, later on we'll do as generic way. So go back your controller, now save changes everything. Now what I can do here, we'll have to implement our uh, implementation about that post endpoint. So what I can do, simply I will use that using where transaction, and just pass it to our unit of work dot begin transaction, so that whatever transaction will start, it will start from here and it will actually store whatever transaction. And then what I will do, just create a variable for this whatever we have done, right? So I think we have to record this one. So first let me copy this. Now I just created our block repository variable, and then we can use that block repository variable for this post. So there's a way we can do that. We can actually use that mapper as well. We can map whatever data. So let me use this dot post, or just add async, right? We have add async, and here they record that entity, right? So there's the way we can do that using that imapper, which is we have done in my our previous session. So if you don't know that imapper, you can just refer that. So what I will do, I will just map our imapper to this name and description. So whatever our blog, that is also have a same name, so I don't need to do anything. What I will do, just use imapper. So before use imapper, you have just inject that imapper over here. So imapper, and use that imapper to this and just inject over here as well. And then change it to over here, imapper to dot map, and whatever your you want to map over here, I want to map to post to, because I want to change our post entity to our dto. So what I can do, whatever request, we can just pass it to over here, and that's it. And just store as a where post blog entity, right? So it should be named as a blog entity, and just pass it to your blog entity to here. That's it. It's complaining. Okay, I need to pass to blog actually. So this is blog entity, this is done. And then blog, and await, and then calling to your main. So this is done for saving in your what is say in your block table, right? It is very simple. I just mapping, either you can map or you can just direct convert your entity to dto, or whatever your preference, you can do that. I just do this way, and then finally change this, and that will create it a block. And also we can store as a variable like blog blog result. And then what I can do, that blog, then this is first transaction is completed, right? So what I can do, I can use that unit of work is save changes. So dot that save changes and done. So what will done, what we'll do in here, okay, we have to specify that await. So whatever we have the adding our entity, that will save changes and it will just create it in memory whatever your data just prepare, right? So I can get that whatever newly created id I can get from here. And now similar way I can do for that post as well. So I need to get this post copy over here, and then what I will do, post repository dot dot add a sync, and we have to pass to uh, our data for blog. Okay, okay, one more thing actually, see in here our request we can get multiple posts, right? For one block can have multiple posts. So in this way it is a single adding facility provide this method. So in this way what I can do, I can create one more method in our generic repository so that we can add multiple in one shot, right? So go to that implementation method, and here I will just create another implementation which will provide multiple insertion. So what I can do, simply I can just create a method for task, and then use that add. So like this way I can just create a add range and pass it to I enumerable entity, so that whatever I enumerable list you can just pass, it will just add together in instead of one by one, right? So same things, I have to just create a signature inside this here. Now it's done, implementation done. Now go back to your controller. Here I will use, instead of that add add a sync, I will use add range async, so that I can just pass it to the our enumerable list, because I will get that enumerable list from that post entity. So what I can do over here, I need to again, yeah, I need to change again this mapper, right? Again I have to just create a mapper, simple I mapper, and then pass it to post, and then you have to just pass your repository blog post repository to that post request, right? Because this is a collection of post requests that I need to map over here. That is done. And now finally what I can do, I can just store here where it could be name of that post entity, and store here. It's complaining something. What it's complaining? Okay, I'm missing one method. It is called it map, right? So you have to use that imapper.map, then it will start to conversion. So this is done. Then finally you have to just pass over here, and now it is post. Okay, it's complaining. Actually, it's required that enumerable list, right? Because I just pass it over here as single entity. So what I can do, I just need to pass to list. So once you have to done, so it will gone. So that is done now. So now actually, yeah, now again we have to do save changes. Whatever we have done, just save changes. Now once it's save changes done for both, right? Like post and blog and post, then finally what I can do, I need to commit these things. Okay, finally if everything is working fine, so I need to commit. So how we can commit? It's very simple. Again, unit of work dot commit transaction, and that's it. Also specify that await, because it is async await method. And then we have to keep those things. Actually, we have to maintain the rollback things, right? So how we can do that? It's very simple. Again, just try to using the try catch. Inside the try catch, what I will do, I just cut all the implementation inside to try. If any issue over here, if any issue or any error occur in this method, while suppose I'll just insert over here, and while issue something, it should be throw in the cache exception, right? In this cache exception will handle those things. For example, await unit of work rollback, and then simply I can return uh, throw the exception, right? So what I can do, I can just simply return, I can just simply return I can simply return actually status 500, right? And along with our error message as well. So how we can do that? Yeah, this is, I can pass a new object, and here we can pass it error, and just pass it to your error. For example, I have this ex dot message. So whatever error we'll get, we can pass it to here. And this is rollback done, this is done. And if it is success, so what I will do, I'll just return to that same way. I can pass to status code to 200, 200, 201. That's it. So that is done. Straightforward implementation. It is not complex, very not complex, but yeah, you have to do so that you have to follow that everything, then you can just get it. So it is very simple. Again, I'll just recap. Just try to begin transaction. So let me start. Okay, so start the begin transaction. Okay, and in this begin transaction, what we trying to do over here, we just create our separate db context. So this is our block db context. I use that db context, and then post db context, and then finally here, right? So once it's done, what I will do, simply I have to run this application and see in actions what we have done, so that we have achieved well or not. One thing I miss actually, so yeah, that will I'll show you where I can get it. Okay, simply I just pass it to here, nothing I just have to change. And this block id I not to pass actually. Okay, that's fine. So execute. I've done. It is just creating, that's fine. I have to remove this debugger point. So it should be called this one, that is fine, that's expected. Now get back to here. Now I am getting that error, right? So what is this error? See, it is just complete, right? Just because I'm just using this mapper, right? But I have not mapped actually, so that is a problem. So that's why I haven't fixed, but I'll show you, like, okay, you can get this error, but how we can resolve this error. So that is important. So go to our mapper class, mapper profile class. Here you have to mention, you have to actually map those things. So how we can map? It's very simple. I already created one session for here. So what I will map for blog first. That blog I have to map with our which DTO. I'll just our DTO name is post DTO, right? Okay, blog post DTO, blog post DTO, and then reverse. It is fine. So that reverse method will be work for both way. Similar, I need to map for that create map for that post, and that post request as well. That is done. So these things was pending. So let me stop and run. So now go to here, try, execute. Once you execute, you will get over here. Now try this time. Now see, this time I get, and also it is changed to whatever data we have. Just change it to back to our entity. Now it's here. Now see, this time nothing, but once I save change, it should be generate the ID, right? So let me save change. Once I save change, you will see get the ID. But I'll show you as well here. Once you, this is blog, this is post, this is blog. So let me select table star from uh, blog, right? So that blogs, you will not get any data because I'll not commit, right? I just save changes, but you will not get data while you did not commit, right? So that did commit will section in the last if everything is well. So now similar way what I will do, I just create, okay, one thing I miss actually, okay, that ID, whatever ID I just created, right? So this ID actually reference with here, so that I need to map. But yeah, I'll show you one thing. For example, see, just create it again just create it over here, one entity, nothing over here. Also block ID is null, everything is null. Once it's done, save changes, it should be created, right? See, it should be save changes. Then if you go to here, I'm not returning, but yeah, I should have, yeah, see, it is returning. And then commit and return, it should be returned successfully. I can get 201, and also you will show the data for this. You will get this data, and if you go to that post, select star that post. Now see, we have get data, but yeah, that by default I have not actually passing that ID, whatever block ID we have generated, right? So that I have to pass, so that's why it is nothing, it is just getting this data, but whatever default data I pass it, right? So now I need to change a little bit in our code so that whatever block ID is generated, I need to add in our this entity, right? So what I will do, it's very simple, it's very simple line. We have to set that this entity and dot for each, and then just use the lambda expression. And here what I can do, just specify dot block id, and then specify your block id will get from here. So you can get it from here, dot id. This is a string and this is an integer. Okay, so this is one issue actually over here. So in previously I just wrongly created this thing. So what I can do, I have to change to integer to integer, string to integer, because our primary key is an integer, so block table has an integer, so I just wrongly edit. Okay, so once I change, so there's a some issue. If I change string to integer, so there's a some compilation issue. So let me compile first. So see, there's a some issue, so that I need to fix. So what is the issue? If you go to here, so okay, so I just trying to this, so that's why it's getting error. So let me fix that issue and also this issue, and now compile again. So once it's done succeed, so then again just migrate, it succeed, and then update for post migration. So once you update, definitely it should be update, yeah. So it's saying some conversion issue because we have some data. So what I can do, if it is data, so that's actually have some issue. So I can just truncate the table, right? Truncate table and table name, because if it's data, there's a typecast issue, right? So first you need to truncate. Once you truncate, then you just have to update again. See, now it's fine. Now if you get this, you will get this data. It should be changed. So let me refresh this blog, and this time it should be changed. Now see, this time is changed, not null, and also integer. Okay, perfect. Now it is got changed. Now I also assign this, and what I can do, I can run again, and let's see in action. Now post. Now this time I'll just give the correct name, so that we can see. Okay, blog is for C sharp, and description is a C sharp is a good language, and then title for this actually create or just default constructor. Actually this is a title, and also description we can just add your description. Author name is Karthik, and block id I don't record that block id because this will generate automatically. Okay, now execute. Once you execute, you will get this error. Okay, block id field is required because I mentioned over here, that's why it's asking. But yeah, there's a two way actually we can fix that. What I can do, go back here and go to here. I don't require inside this block id because this will be automatically populated. So remove that, go back again, and just try to again just C sharp, and C sharp description, title is default constructor, and your description, author is Karthik. And okay, I think it's not reflecting. Okay, let me copy this. Let me stop actually. Let me run. Sometime actually hot reload is not working properly, that's why we have to stop. But yeah, try change it to that and remove that block id. That's it, and execute. Go to here, then F10, begin transaction start, and see transaction id is also created. Then start, that is done. Then finally it is done. Now I'm getting this id, those data. id is 0. Now it should be populated with this 2. So now you will see that data. See, blog id is 2, other with the that rest of name. Then change, save change, commit, return back, execute. Now uh, go back to table. You can see the data for the post. See, this time block id is 2, and whatever name, same things we can check for blog. See, id 2 is generated for C sharp, and description, those things refer over there. That also you can verify over here for the get call for this blog db context. So call this. So you can see the both data is getting populated. Similar post, also debugging point over here. Let me remove that debugging point. Now see, you are getting data, block id post 2, because we just other we have truncated, right? So now everything is done, right? We have managed. Okay, so one more thing I'll show you actually, that rollback transaction, right? So suppose if we have missed something, so that should be rollback. So what I can do, I can forcefully or actually throw the exception here. Okay, so how we can do this? It's very simple. Throw a new exception and pass it to transaction exception, right? And save. This time I hope hot reload should work. Okay, so let me run. Let me run one more time and I'll show you like how is managing actually rollback. So I'll just passing to default name. Okay, default property name. So go back here, this, go back, everything is fine. It is creating everything, it's fine. Then also just here also just create for that post, right? For post as well, it's got created id with 2, but yeah, block id is 3. But here is the exception, right? If you put the debugger point here, so before commit, actually if we get a transaction error, so it should not store in our db, right? So that we can make sure. So see here, it's rollback, it should be rollback, continue. So you will get the error, right? Transaction error, that is fine. And if you go back your blocks, it should, last time it's just created 2, right? It should be 3. So once you refresh your table, it's nothing, right? Because it's rollback. It's, if you occurring any issue, so it's transaction fail, it's rollback. So that's also is important to manage, right? So that's why we have using that multiple db with this unit of work. So that is done. Now I just remove this code. Okay, so this is done, and now what is the next? Okay, so all three endpointer is created for single single data getting for single db for this block, single db for the post, as well as we have inserting data for both, like db first, like block db and post db together, and also manage the db context transaction, right? So the final things is like, suppose we have 2 db, right? So this is 1 db, this is another db. So we can, how we can get this stored data, like from this data from this block db context and post db context, and how we can merge in our one entity, and how we can show, right? For example, if you go back in your swagger, here I can get see only just this. Okay, remove that debugger point. You will see only that data, right? Only just block data, but there is no data for post. This is a block data, but there is not in associate this, how many posts associate in this block, right? So that I will create another endpoint, which is I'll show in a demo from the start. So what I can do, it's very simple. Again, I need to just create a one endpoint which will return here. Let's just create an endpoint. Okay, before that, just stop that. Okay, http get, and then specify like for example with post blog with post, and here I have to just create a method like that, and the name would be blog with post, and this is done. And then I have to implement, right? So it's very simple. Again, similar things I need to do, copy these things so that I can get all the get blocks, right? Similar I need to get for that post. So whatever what I, okay, so this time I just differentiate the name. This is for blog result, and this is for post result. Okay, so this is done. I get the result from that blog, I can the post, and then I need to just merge over here. So this is the way, many way actually you can do that. So one of the way I can show you the join. So for example, blogs blogs and just create whatever your entity result. So this is my blog entity result, and here I'll just use that group join, and I will just pass it to whatever our another result for the post. that I need to pass over here, and then what I can do, I just create a one lambda expression over here, right? So let me down over here, and for example it is for blog, right? So let me blog, and then create a lambda expression, and then blog dot id. So this id should be joined with our order table, right? So how we can do that? It's very simple. Again, just create a for that post, actually post, then again create another lambda expression for post dot block id, block id, right? Block id. Okay, so this is just join, simple join. This is a very very simple join. So it's very simple. Then what I'm trying to do, whatever blog blog post, so just trying to join, and then our post result. So I just I actually create a instance of that blog, and then block id, and then post also that block id, right? So I just create a that instance, and the store as a variable, and then finally what I need to do over here, I need to here just store another function that use whatever your blog and post, blog and post, and then finally I need to use uh, I have to just change or just conversion our DTO, right? So it's very simple how we can do that. Whatever your response you want to return, you can just return back over here. Go to your model, right? So let me create a response class, create blog response, blog response, and here you can just whatever response you want, you can just specify over here. So what a response I want over here, I want only name, and this also id also required. So let me get from here. So I required this three property, along with I required that that's the post request property as well, right? So but as a list I want to see over here. So what I can do, I can just create another model for that. Let me create blocks, and then post response, post res post response, and add. And now here I can just pass it to whatever post response I required, right? So I required post response as id author, but not as a block id. So let me add it over here. It's very simple. Then go to your blog response, and here just create a list over here, so that you can associate a list, right? So let me create a list, post response, and then finally I can change it to like post list. Okay, now this response I will use in our final response, right? So go back to your controller, in here, go back to your controller. Okay, now finally what I can do, I can just change to our response post blog response over here, and then we can specify our id is a blog id dot id, and then what I need to change to description is a blog description. Similar way I can do for name, and then finally I can change it to blog post, and this time I will use that because this is a collection, right? So in this collection it will return as a post request. Okay, mapper dot map, and then what we have to return, we have to return that post response, right? So let me change it to post response, and then change it to just specify your entity result, so that is post. So let me change it to the post collections, and that's it. And then it's complaining something. It is actually return that list of result, right? List of post response. So let me change it, and now it's saying another complaining like conversion issue, right? So see, it is saying it's a post request, but I'm just returning post response. So might be I just wrongly configured in our post blog response. If you go to here, yeah, that is wrongly configured. So what I can do, instead of post response, you can just instead of post request, you can just change to post response. So that's it. And then finally you can just correct it over here. Yeah, that's it. That you have to just sit, and then what you can do, you can just to list, change it to list, because it is returning a list, and then finally return to blog result. So this is done, and let me rebuild. It should be succeed. Make sure it succeed. Yeah, it succeed. Now run. Now I should get all the result along all the blog along with the see, this is new endpoint. So let me try execute. Once you execute, it is saying some conversion issue, right? So that is expected, just because I just convert to this uh, post to post response, but I'm not map, right? So that also I need to map. So how we can do map? It's very simple. Again, then post to create map post to post response. That's simple. Save it, stop, run. Now it's running. Let me try to get again one more time. So now getting, now see, this time if any blog has a post, so it will return. It will not, then it will empty, right? It's very nice flexibility give us. And also now what I will do, I'll just add, now I just add only one post list, right, along with this here. So what I will do, I'll just create a one more post along with three or more property, like for example generic repository, right? Generic repository, and then it should be description, and also type for uh, extendable repository, extendable. Okay, and then author name is Karthik, and then similar I just need to create more post. For example, I want to write three posts. For example, is the extendable repository, and then other one is for example multi db, which we are showing over here, multi db context. Okay, and then finally we can just add something generic with multi db, which will cover in next series, next session. So let me execute. Let me remove the debugger point. Execute. it should be, yeah, 201. That means it should be created. Let me get it again. That, see, now this time I have a blog for generic repository along with this all the blog post, right? So this is very easy. Also you can make sure in the db. So this post, now if you, I'll show you. So this is a three, one post, one blog has a three post, and this blog post is a four, so that you can check it but four as well. Now see, this is fourth one. So that's it for this session. So we easily, actually we have complete the multiple db context and also manage the transaction. Everything we have complete in with the generic repository, and upcoming session will cover that, a generic way to handle that, the multiple db context, right? So that we'll do in upcoming session. So till now, thank you, have a nice day, and don't forget to subscribe, like and share.